Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I recently gave birth 3 months ago. My husband brought his mistress home and coldly demanded a divorce. I didn't cry, I didn't make a scene. I just quietly signed the papers and settled the assets. A few months later, when they saw me again, they were all stunned and turned pale. But before I continue, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please hit the subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know which city you're watching from in the US. This helps us see how far our story can spread. The cries of my daughter, 3-month-old Ava, tore through the suffocating silence of the house. Her cries were still delicate, but for me, they sounded like a storm warning, signaling the impending upheaval of my life. I sat on the bed, rocking her tiny back, my mind a mess. Downstairs, Ethan, the man I had shared 7 years with, was sitting with another woman. That woman, ironically, was Skylar, my subordinate at the firm. I carried Ava and walked slowly down the stairs. My heart hammered heavily in my chest. Ethan and Skylar were sitting on the creamy leather sofa that I had personally chosen. That sofa had witnessed so many happy moments for our family. Now, it was the judgment seat for my marriage. Ethan saw me, and a flicker of confusion crossed his eyes before quickly settling into a cold, distant gaze. Skylar, conversely, looked at me with a mixture of challenge and triumph. "Have a seat, Olivia. I have something I need to discuss." Ethan's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. I didn't sit. I just stood there, holding my daughter in one arm, adjusting the burp cloth with the other. Ava's crying subsided, and she began to doze off in my arms. I looked at Ethan, the man I had loved for 10 years from our college days to building this career and this home. His face was the same, the familiar features I had gazed at countless times. But why did he seem so alien today? "What is it? Say what you need to say." "She just fell asleep. I don't want her waking up," I replied, my voice equally calm. I was surprised by my own composure. Perhaps when the pain reaches its peak, one loses the capacity to cry or scream. Ethan cleared his throat. He looked away, avoiding my eyes. "I think we should stop here. I want a divorce." Those 4 words, "I want a divorce," fell from his lips so easily, light as a breeze, yet potent enough to shatter my soul. 7 years of marriage, 10 years of love, all ending with such a succinct declaration? I glanced at Skylar. She bowed her head, hands clasped on her lap, playing the part of the passive, innocent party. A naive, pathetic girl drawn into a sinful romance. I found her performance ridiculous. "What is the reason?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "Is it because of her?" Ethan remained silent. His silence was the clearest affirmation. Skylar finally looked up, her eyes welling up with tears. "Olivia, I'm so sorry, but matters of the heart can't be predicted. Ethan and I, we truly love each other." I laughed, a quiet, sardonic sound. "You love him? Your love is built on someone else's pain? On the wreckage of a family? Do you know my daughter is only 3 months old? She barely knows her father's face, yet you two heartlessly did this?" Ava stirred slightly in my arms, seemingly sensing the tension in her mother's voice. I gently patted her back, forcing myself not to collapse. I had to be strong for my daughter. "Olivia, don't talk like that." Ethan finally spoke, his voice laced with annoyance. "This has nothing to do with Skylar. Our feelings for each other simply ran out. I don't want to continue a loveless marriage." "Loveless?" I repeated. "Then what were those past years? The promises, the memories, were they all lies, Ethan? When did your love run out? When she showed up, right?" I looked straight into Ethan's eyes, trying to find a trace of the familiar man I once loved. But no, all that remained in his eyes was coldness and resolve. He had changed. Or perhaps this was his true self that I had failed to see all these years. The house fell into a terrifying silence, broken only by the steady breathing of sleeping Ava. I knew further words were pointless. When a heart has changed, every word becomes superfluous. Seeing the conversation stall, Skylar grew impatient. She dropped her innocent act, stood up, and approached me. "Olivia, I know you're in pain, but please understand us. Ethan isn't happy being with you anymore. Why drag this out and make all 3 of us miserable?" I took a step back, clutching my daughter tighter. You don't have the right to say those words to me. Who are you? You're nothing but a homewrecker who intruded on my family." Skylar choked up, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Ethan, her eyes pleading for rescue. "Ethan, did you hear what she just said?" Ethan stood up, stepping between Skylar and me. "Olivia, that's enough. Don't be unreasonable." "I'm being unreasonable?" I looked at him, feeling a fire raging in my chest. "Who is the unreasonable one here? You bring your mistress to our home and demand a divorce from the wife who just bore your child 3 months ago. Do you have the nerve to call me unreasonable?" My words seemed to strike a nerve. Ethan's face darkened. Just then, Skylar lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. "Olivia, please let me explain. It's not what you think." By instinct, I swiftly stepped aside to avoid her. I didn't want my daughter disturbed, but in Ethan's eyes, my action looked like deliberate provocation. Without hesitation, he forcefully pushed my shoulder. "What are you doing?" The push wasn't severe, but I was holding the baby and had only recently given birth, leaving my body weak. I stumbled back several steps, nearly falling. Luckily, I caught myself on the stair railing. Ava woke up with a start, crying out in fright. My heart tightened. He, my husband of many years, the father of my daughter, had laid a hand on me just to protect his mistress. In that moment, everything inside me shattered. There was no more pain, no more clinging, only profound disappointment and contempt. The last tear for this marriage fell. I looked up, meeting Ethan and Skylar's eyes, my voice cold and firm. "Fine. I agree to the divorce." Ethan seemed stunned by my abrupt change. Perhaps he expected me to continue weeping and pleading. Skylar looked bewildered as well. I said no more, hugged my sobbing daughter, turned, and walked straight upstairs to our room. The sound of the door closing was a cold, definitive period for a painful chapter in my life. From this moment on, I was no longer the long-suffering wife. I would be a mother, and I would do everything to protect my daughter and reclaim justice for myself. The plan for revenge began to take shape in my mind, clear and meticulous. A few days later, we met to discuss the divorce proceedings. This time, there were no tears, no reproaches, just tense silence and clear calculations on every face. I brought along a friend who was an attorney, a move that surprised and irritated both Ethan and Skylar. "I thought we could handle this ourselves, Olivia. No need to complicate things," Ethan said, eyeing my attorney friend with suspicion. I offered a thin smile. "I disagree, Ethan. The clearer we are from the start, the fewer problems we'll have later. We were once husband and wife. I don't want us to end up dragging each other back to court over money or assets." The negotiation turned to assets. The house was marital property, but most of the down payment came from my parents. The SUV Ethan drove was registered under my name. The business loans were all in Ethan's name. I didn't demand a 50-over-50 split of the house, which would be too complicated and slow. Instead, I demanded Ethan repay the full amount my parents had contributed for the down payment, plus half the current market value of the home's equity. Ethan frowned. "That's too much money, Olivia. I can't liquidate that immediately." "That's your problem," I replied evenly. "You can sell the house to pay me, or you can take out a loan. I give you 3 months. The most contentious issue was custody. Unexpectedly, Ethan wanted to fight for custody of Ava. I knew he wasn't doing this out of deep love for our daughter. She was 3 months old. He hadn't held her 10 times. He did it to save face with his family and friends, to prove he was a responsible father despite leaving his wife. "Ava is my daughter. I have the right to raise her," Ethan stated firmly. Skylar, sitting beside him, chimed in. "That's right. Ethan will take good care of Ava. I'll help him too." I almost laughed at their naivety. My attorney spoke up, her voice professional and sharp. "In Illinois, the court prioritizes the best interests of the child, and for an infant this young, the mother is typically designated the primary residential parent, unless the mother is demonstrably unfit or there is a mutual agreement otherwise. Olivia is healthy, financially stable, and morally fit to raise her child. If you persist in fighting for full custody, Mr. Miller, we are prepared to go to court, and I am confident the judge will rule in my client's favor." Ethan and Skylar's faces paled. They clearly hadn't anticipated this legal hurdle. After a tense silence, Ethan conceded. Finally, the issue of child support. I presented a figure that made both of them gape. A 5-figure monthly payment, enough to ensure Ava had the most comfortable life possible. "Are you insane?" Ethan practically yelled. "Where would I get that kind of money every month?" "Your monthly income is well into 6 figures, Ethan. I don't think this amount is excessive for you. That is your responsibility to your daughter. You may not want your wife, but Ava will always be your child. Do you want her to live in scarcity?" I countered calmly, each word aimed at his vulnerability. Skylar couldn't take it anymore. "You're just trying to bleed him dry. Ethan still has to worry about his new life. He has to worry about me. Your relationship is between you two. It has nothing to do with me and my daughter," I cut her off coldly. "If you don't agree, we will meet in court. At that point, it won't just be about child support. All your assets and income will be scrutinized by the court. Do you want that?" Ethan stared at me, his eyes filled with anger, but also helplessness. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Finally, after some haggling, he reluctantly agreed to all the terms I presented. Skylar, sitting next to him, looked furious, her eyes wanting to devour me whole. I knew she was enraged that her plan for a wealthy lifestyle had been partially ruined, but this was only the beginning. After the divorce agreement, which was highly favorable to me, was signed, the atmosphere in the house grew even heavier. Ethan and Skylar likely expected Ava and me to move out immediately, clearing the space for their new nest. But I had other plans. Leaving now would be too easy for them. That evening, after settling Ava down, I found Ethan alone in the living room, nursing a glass of bourbon, deep in thought. Skylar must have retreated to their room. I intentionally adopted a tired and fragile demeanor, walking slowly and sitting on the couch opposite him. "Ethan," I began, my voice hoarse, "I know everything is settled, and Ava and I should move out." Ethan didn't look at me, only nodded. "When are you planning to leave? If you need help with the moving, let me know. I can hire someone to assist." I looked down, twisting my hands, feigning distress. "I want to leave right away, but you see how small Ava is. All her things, the bassinet, the stroller, the clothes, the formula, it's overwhelming. I'm alone now, and my strength hasn't fully returned. I truly don't know how to manage. Plus, finding a place now is difficult. I want somewhere quiet and safe for her. It might take some time." I looked up, intentionally letting my eyes well up. "Ethan, could you allow Ava and me to stay here for a few more weeks? I promise we won't interfere with you and Skylar. We just need a little corner." My words seemed to prick the last remnants of guilt in Ethan's heart. He looked at me, then up toward Ava's room. Her soft gurgling sounds drifted down. Perhaps the image of his tiny daughter softened his stony heart somewhat. "Fine," he sighed. "You can stay. Move out when you find a new place. After all, this was once your home too." "Thank you," I said, my voice dripping with gratitude. "Thank you so much." Inside, a cold smile bloomed. My plan had worked. I had bought myself more time, more opportunities to execute the next steps. Staying here, under the same roof, would allow me to observe them, understand them better. Most importantly, I would use the presence of my daughter and myself as a constant thorn in their side, ensuring they never had a day of peace. This house, which should have been my safe harbor, would become the stage for my revenge play, with me as the director. Ethan and Skylar, the lead actors, would perform exactly according to the script I had written. During the nights I stayed in my own home, feeling like a stranger, I often couldn't sleep. When Ava was fast asleep, I would sit alone in the darkness, letting old memories rush back, gnawing at my soul. Ethan and I had a love story many envied. 10 years, not a long time, but long enough for us to evolve from naive college students into adults, building our careers and this home together. I still vividly remembered the first day I saw him on campus, beneath the oak tree. He wore a white button-down, and his radiant smile captivated the freshman I was. We shared a beautiful love, traversing struggling times filled with laughter. 7 years ago, we married, blessed by family and friends. I once thought I was the happiest woman alive, but life is rarely a fairy tale. The tragedy began 2 years ago when I became pregnant with our first child, a healthy baby boy. We were so happy, buying every tiny item, imagining a future filled with a child's laughter. But then, an accident stole everything. It was a weekend, and I was 8 months pregnant. Ethan was driving me to buy baby clothes, talking on his work phone, failing to notice the delivery truck speeding out of an alley. He slammed the brakes, and I hit the dashboard hard. I was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. I lost my son. The pain of losing my child was a knife plunged into my heart, but what hurt more was Ethan's reaction. He grieved too, and felt remorse. But his remorse wasn't for the child we lost, but for his own guilt. He avoided me, avoided talking about the baby. He buried himself in work as a way to escape reality. He didn't hold me or cry with me. A silent gap opened between us, one that nothing could fill. That was when Skylar appeared. She was a new hire in my department, young, attractive, and most importantly, she knew how to look up to Ethan and sympathize with him. She listened to him complain about work, pressure, and the sorrow he couldn't share with his wife. She offered him the hollow comfort he needed, and inevitably, it happened. They started their affair behind my back while I was sinking in profound grief. I wasn't blind to Ethan's change. The secretive calls, the hastily deleted texts, the late nights coming home with excuses about clients, the faint smell of unfamiliar perfume on his shirt. A wife's intuition told me he was cheating, but I tried to ignore it. I lied to myself that I was being overly sensitive. I was afraid to face the truth. Afraid that if I exposed everything, I would lose him, lose the family I had painstakingly built. I hoped that if I was patient, if I loved him more, he would realize his mistake and return. But I was wrong. My silence only encouraged him to push further, to openly flaunt his relationship with his mistress. Now, they were audacious enough to pressure me to leave. The pain of losing my son, compounded by the agony of betrayal, transformed into a smoldering fire of hatred within me, just waiting for the day to erupt and consume everything. I was never a foolish woman. Love had just blinded me for a time. Before Ethan went public, I had quietly investigated Skylar. As a department manager, it wasn't difficult, and what I discovered stunned me with her audacity and cunning. Skylar wasn't the naive, innocent girl she pretended to be. Before Ethan, she had been the mistress of Mr. Harrison, the executive vice president of the company. He was 20 years older, married with a family. He provided Skylar with a lavish life, from the luxury condo she lived in to her expensive designer goods. That relationship lasted several years. I also heard rumors from Skylar's former colleagues that she'd had to deal with consequences more than once. The affair only unraveled when Mr. Harrison's wife found out and created a massive scene at the office, humiliating Skylar publicly. Fearful of damaging his career and family, Mr. Harrison immediately cut off all contact and financial support. Right when she was alone and losing her financial lifeline, Skylar targeted Ethan. My husband was then a talented director of sales, earning a high salary, and crucially, having marital problems. He was the perfect new source of income. Skylar used the same old tricks, acting vulnerable, weak, and in need of protection, to approach and seduce Ethan. And my husband, disillusioned with his home life, easily fell into that sugary trap. I knew all of this, even better than Ethan did. I knew Skylar came to him not entirely for love, but mostly for money and status, because she needed a new source to replace the executive vice president. But I chose to remain silent. What was the point of exposing everything now? It would only embarrass Ethan, and he would defend her more vehemently, thinking I was just inventing lies out of jealousy. No, I wouldn't do that. I would keep this secret as my trump card. I would let Ethan and Skylar drown in their false love. I would wait until the right moment, when they least expected it, and flip the card. I wanted Ethan to witness the true face of the woman for whom he abandoned his family. I wanted him to taste the feeling of being deceived and betrayed, the way I had. My revenge wouldn't be loud or rushed. It would unfold slowly, gradually, like a dose of slow-acting poison, letting them destroy each other until their relationship lay in ruins. I knew my in-laws loved me dearly, especially their first grandchild, Ava, but I didn't proactively call them to inform them of the situation. I wanted Ethan to do that. I wanted to see how he would explain his cruel decision to his own parents. Just as I predicted, only 2 days after we signed the divorce agreement, my in-laws rushed up from their home in Iowa. As soon as I saw the taxi pull up, I knew the storm was coming. My mother-in-law, a traditional, straightforward woman with a fiery temper, stormed into the house like a tornado. Before she could greet me or ask about her grandchild, her eyes were blazing as she searched for Ethan. "Where is that scoundrel, Ethan? Where is that damned boy? Get out here!" Ethan and Skylar were in the kitchen and hurried out upon hearing her. As soon as she saw Skylar hiding behind her son, my mother-in-law erupted. "Ah, there you are, you little vixen. What spell did you cast on my son to make him do this? Get out of my house right now. Who allowed you to set foot here?" Overcome by rage, she rolled up her sleeves and lunged toward Skylar. Ethan panicked, quickly hugging his mother to shield his mistress. "Mom, what are you doing? Please calm down." "Calm down, you say?" My mother-in-law wrestled with her son while pointing straight at Skylar. "Are you protecting her? Look at what you've done. Your wife just gave birth and hasn't recovered, and my grandchild is still small, yet you heartlessly kick them out to bring this piece of trash home? Do you have any decency left?" My father-in-law, a calmer man, entered just then, his face dark with disappointment and anger. He looked at his son, shaking his head. "Ethan, I never thought you'd be this kind of son. Your mother and I taught you to live with morals and responsibility. How can you treat your wife and child like this? How will you face anyone after this?" Skylar was terrified, completely white-faced, hiding behind Ethan. Ethan, juggling his mother and the insults, was flushed with shame and anger. "Mom, Dad, don't interfere in my business. I'm an adult, I know what I'm doing." "You know what you're doing? You know, and yet you destroy this family?" My mother-in-law shoved Ethan aside. She walked directly to me, where I stood silently holding Ava. She looked at me, then at her tiny granddaughter, her eyes shifting from fury to pity. Tears began to fall. "Oh my dear, you and my grandchild, what sin did you commit to deserve this? You stay right here. You're not going anywhere. This is your home, and my grandchild's. Let me see who dares try to throw you out." She turned and gave Ethan and Skylar a look sharp as a knife. "And you, treat your wife and child better. Otherwise, don't blame this old woman for not holding back." The in-laws' fury created an entirely new dynamic. Their presence was a sturdy shield protecting Ava and me. I knew that from now on, Ethan and Skylar's life in this house would not be easy. And this was a crucial part of my plan. My in-laws' presence completely overturned Ethan and Skylar's life, while also providing invaluable support for my scheme. They announced they would stay for a while to care for their grandchild and retrain their son. The downstairs guest room, which Ethan planned to use for storage, became theirs. Every day, my mother-in-law woke up early to go to the market and cook nutritious meals for me. She took over nearly all of Ava's care bathing, changing diapers, rocking her to sleep. She did all this openly, right in front of Skylar, a silent declaration that in this house, I was the only daughter-in-law and Ava was the only grandchild. Skylar, from the position of a soon-to-be lady of the house, suddenly became a superfluous presence, a thorn in my in-laws' side. She stayed cooped up in her room, rarely daring to venture out. Every meal was torture. My mother-in-law refused to speak to her or allow Ethan to serve her food. She only repeatedly urged me, "Eat more, dear. You need strength to produce milk for my grandchild." My in-laws also established a new rule. Ethan had to be home for dinner every night, and after the meal, he had to spend at least an hour playing with his daughter. Ethan reluctantly complied. He dared not defy his parents, and I, of course, leveraged this opportunity to the fullest. I deliberately created moments for Ethan to have close contact with Ava. While he was watching TV, I would bring Ava near. "Honey, can you hold her for a minute? I need to go mix her a bottle. My back hurts today." Ethan couldn't refuse in front of his parents. He awkwardly took the baby from me. Ava, too young to understand, just grinned widely when she saw a face. A child's smile possesses a strange, soothing power. I saw Ethan's gaze on his daughter gradually become tender. He started trying to hold her and change her diapers, though he was still very clumsy. During these moments, Skylar could only watch from a distance, her eyes blazing with jealousy. Once, she couldn't stand it and told Ethan, "You spend all your time with that baby. What about me in this house?" Before Ethan could answer, my mother-in-law's voice drifted in from the kitchen. "Well, he's the father. Of course he should take care of his child. Or do you want a baby he can care for too? Wait until I'm using a cane before you bring that topic up." My mother-in-law's words were like cold water dumped on Skylar, leaving her speechless. I knew Ava was the bond tying Ethan to his past and his responsibilities. He could easily discard me, but throwing away his flesh and blood daughter was not simple, especially with the pressure from his family. Paternal love, though obscured by temporary passion, is an instinct deep within every man. And I would use this very thread to slowly reel him back in, making him writhe with guilt and regret until his relationship with Skylar naturally fractured. My plan was progressing smoothly. The presence of my in-laws and Ava had transformed the house into a silent battlefield where Ethan and Skylar were always on the defensive. But I knew this wasn't enough. I needed a stronger push to fully ignite the paternal instinct and guilt in Ethan's heart. One evening, after my in-laws had gone to bed, I noticed Ava was restless. I felt her forehead. It was slightly warm. An idea flashed in my mind. I waited until nearly midnight, when the whole house was fast asleep. I gently woke my daughter. The drowsy baby immediately started crying. I didn't soothe her. I let her cries grow a little louder. Then I rushed to Ethan's door and knocked frantically, my voice anxious and shaky. "Ethan! Ethan, wake up! Ava has a high fever." The frantic knocking and the baby's cries jolted Ethan and Skylar awake. Ethan opened the door, his face still groggy and annoyed. "What is it? Why are you making such a racket?" She has a fever," I exclaimed, pointing toward my room. "She's burning up and won't stop crying. I'm scared." Hearing about his daughter, the annoyance vanished from Ethan's face, replaced by worry. He rushed into my room. Skylar hesitantly followed. Ethan felt Ava's forehead, then quickly pulled out a thermometer. 100.4 degrees F. "She does have a high fever," he murmured. "Bundle her up. I'll get the car and take her to the hospital right away." He ran downstairs for his keys without hesitation. Skylar stood at the door, looking confused. She seemed to want to say something but held back when she saw Ethan's tense expression. On the way to the pediatric emergency room, I sat in the back, holding Ava. Ethan drove, occasionally glancing back to check on her. "How is she? Is she still crying?" His voice was genuinely anxious. At the Children's Hospital ER, the scene was chaotic with crying babies and frantic parents. Ethan ran around, completing the admission paperwork, buying medicine, and fetching water for Ava. Watching his busy silhouette in the middle of the night, I saw a familiar image of the husband and father he once was. He might be a terrible husband, but perhaps he wasn't beyond redemption as a father. The doctor diagnosed Ava with a common viral fever. Nothing serious, but she needed to stay overnight for observation. Ethan insisted on staying at the hospital to watch over her. He sat by the bedside, barely sleeping the whole night, constantly checking her temperature. Looking at his tiny daughter resting weakly in the hospital bed, his face reflected profound sorrow and self-reproach. I knew he wouldn't sleep soundly tonight, and that was exactly what I wanted. Guilt would be the most effective weapon. It would slowly erode his love for his mistress. After that night at the hospital, Ethan noticeably changed. His concern for Ava became obvious. The first thing he did when he came home from work was check on her, picking her up and cuddling her for a while. He also proactively bought formula, clothes, and toys for Ava, things he never did before. In the evenings, he spent more time in my room playing with her, sometimes until late. He tried to feed her and read her stories, even though she couldn't understand. Watching the father and daughter bond, my in-laws were visibly pleased. My mother-in-law told me, "That's right, dear. Nothing hits a man harder than the bond of blood. He'll come to his senses eventually." I, of course, maintained a reserved, cool attitude toward Ethan. When he spoke, I gave brief answers. When he asked questions, I replied curtly. But I didn't stop him from being close to his daughter. I allowed his paternal instinct the chance to resurface naturally. One evening, as I was rocking Ava to sleep, Ethan came into the room and sat down beside the bed. He silently watched me and Ava for a long time, then suddenly spoke, his voice low. "Olivia, I'm sorry." I didn't turn around, my hand continuing to pat Ava's back steadily. "Sorry for what?" "For everything. For making you and Ava suffer." I gave a faint smile. "What good is an apology now, Ethan? Everything has been decided." "I know," Ethan sighed. "I know I was wrong. Seeing the baby these past few days, I feel restless. She should have a complete family. It's all my fault." He started lamenting his pressures and fatigue over the past while trying to rationalize his actions. He said he had been selfish, only thinking of his own feelings, forgetting his responsibility to his family. I listened in silence. I didn't need these explanations, but I knew this was a good sign. The regret and remorse had begun to sprout and grow in his heart. The deeper his affection for Ava, the greater his guilt toward me would be, and when that guilt was large enough, it would become a wall separating him from Skylar. Meanwhile, Skylar grew increasingly agitated. She clearly saw Ethan's change, noticed him becoming distant, and focused on his daughter. Her jealousy flared up. She often looked for reasons to pick a fight with Ethan. "All you care about is that baby all day. What am I to you in this house? What nonsense are you talking about? She's my child. Is it wrong for me to care for her?" Ethan snapped back. "But I'm the one you'll be living with. You can't neglect the present for the past." Their arguments became more frequent, and I could hear everything from my room. Each time I smiled. Everything was going according to plan. I didn't need to lift a finger. I just had to sit back and watch them self-destruct their own relationship. Skylar's jealousy reached its peak. She started spying on Ethan, scrutinizing his every interaction with Ava and me. She couldn't stand seeing Ethan dedicate more time and attention to his daughter. The opportunity for her outburst finally arrived. It was the day Ava was scheduled for her second round of vaccines. Ethan had promised to take the morning off to accompany us. I naturally agreed. This was a father's duty. Early that morning, as I prepared Ava's bag, Skylar suddenly walked into my room, dressed nicely and fully made up. "I'm coming too," she announced, her voice brooking no argument. I raised an eyebrow. "What for?" "This is family business." "Family?" Skylar scoffed. "Don't forget you two are divorced, and I'm about to be Ethan's wife. His daughter's business is my business too. I'm coming to see how he takes care of her, and to gain experience." I didn't bother arguing. I knew she was just coming to supervise and cause trouble. Ethan came downstairs, surprised and awkward to see Skylar ready to go. "What are you doing?" "Stay home and rest," he said. "I want to go with you and Ava, honey." Skylar pouted, hooking her arm through Ethan's. "Please?" Faced with his mistress's antics, Ethan sighed and agreed, and so the trip to the public health center gained an unwanted passenger. At the crowded vaccination clinic, the air was loud with the cries of children. Ethan proved to be a competent father. He held Ava, soothed her, and efficiently handled the paperwork. After the injection, Ava cried loudly. Ethan held her close, comforting her with obvious affection. That moment was Skylar's breaking point. Standing beside them, watching the close interaction, her eyes flashed with fury. She began to speak in a sharp, deliberately loud voice so those nearby could hear. "Such a difficult baby, crying like the world ended just for one shot. When I have kids, I definitely won't let them whine like that." Her comment was like a needle jabbed at both me and Ethan. He turned and glared at Skylar. "What are you saying? All babies cry. Don't you see the other kids are crying too?" "But she cries for too long. It's giving me a headache," Skylar persisted. "Probably because her mother doesn't discipline her properly. Crying and throwing tantrums over nothing." "Shut up," I finally interjected, my voice icy. "My child's behavior is none of your business. You have no right to judge." "I have no right?" Skylar was instantly activated. "I'm going to have Ethan's baby. I'm her stepmother. Why wouldn't I have the right?" Our argument began to draw attention. People looked at us curiously, whispering and pointing. Ethan, embarrassed, quickly pulled Skylar's arm. "Stop talking. Let's just go home." Just then, Skylar suddenly clutched her abdomen, her face contorting in pain. She slowly crumpled to the ground. "Oh God, the pain. It hurts so much, Ethan. Help me, our baby." The clinic erupted in chaos. Ethan was genuinely panicked. He quickly handed Ava to me and helped Skylar up. "What's wrong, honey? Where does it hurt?" "My stomach, it's cramping. I think I'm having a miscarriage, Ethan," Skylar wailed dramatically. I stood there, coldly observing her clumsy performance. Miscarriage was an old trick, but Ethan bought it hook, line, and sinker. He frantically called a taxi, lifted Skylar into his arms, and rushed her to the nearest OB, divided by Ginn Hospital. Ava and I were left behind. I watched the taxi disappear, a scornful smile on my lips. "Let's see how far you can take your act." I took Ava home. My in-laws, seeing only the two of us, bombarded me with worried questions. "Where is Ethan? Where is that Skylar? Why are you carrying the baby alone?" I calmly recounted the entire scene at the clinic, naturally presenting it from the victim's perspective. I emphasized how Skylar had deliberately provoked me, cursed Ava, and then suddenly put on her act of abdominal pain. My mother-in-law slapped the table furiously. "Oh Lord, what kind of devilish trick is that woman playing now? She's a viper who attacks even an innocent infant. If anything happens to her, it's just karma." My father-in-law was more reserved. "Let's wait to hear what Ethan says. But that Skylar girl certainly has a poor character." About 2 hours later, Ethan returned alone. His face looked weary and somewhat complex, unreadable. "How is Skylar, Ethan?" I asked, feigning concern. Ethan slumped onto the couch. He poured a full glass of water and chugged it down. "She's pregnant." The house fell silent. I wasn't surprised. I had half expected this. But my in-laws were stunned. My mother-in-law stammered, You mean she's really pregnant?" "Yes, the doctor said she's nearly 6 weeks along. She did have minor cramping earlier from the stress, but she's stable now. They sent her home with instructions to rest and avoid emotional distress." The mood in the house darkened. Regardless of paternity, this child was potentially a Miller descendant, and it completely changed the landscape. My mother-in-law, who had just been cursing Skylar, now looked thoughtful and said nothing more. She glanced at me with a touch of discomfort. I knew what she was thinking. However much she loved me, the desire for a male heir was deeply ingrained in the older generation. Ethan looked at me, a hint of remorse in his voice. "Olivia, I know this is sudden, but now that Skylar is pregnant with my child, I have to be responsible for her." "Your responsibilities have nothing to do with me," I replied, my voice chilling. "You and I are divorced. Who you marry and who you have children with is your business, as long as you uphold your child support obligations to Ava." With that, I picked up my daughter and went upstairs, leaving behind a tangled web of emotions. I knew the fight was about to get harder. Skylar now held a talisman. My in-laws, despite their dislike, wouldn't be as harsh due to the child she carried. Ethan would also feel justified in staying with her. But it didn't matter. I still had my trump card. A pregnancy of questionable origin wasn't scary. Let them celebrate now. The greater the joy, the deeper the disappointment when the truth was revealed. The pregnancy brought subtle but definite changes to the household. My mother-in-law stopped openly cursing Skylar, though her attitude remained cold. She started cooking healthier meals for expectant mothers, but at dinner, she still claimed they were for me. "Eat plenty, dear, to recover your strength. The leftovers can be shared." Skylar took the hint and ate quietly, not daring to ask for attention. Ethan tried to be a responsible man. He took better care of Skylar, yet he also didn't neglect Ava. Perhaps he was trying to balance the past and the future, but this very effort only made him more exhausted and stressed. I observed everything and knew my time had come. I needed to drop a bomb into this fragile balance. The year-end was approaching, and my company had a major project that needed completion. This was true. I wasn't making it up. I had worked diligently on this project and decided to use it as the perfect excuse. One evening, at dinner with everyone present, I spoke up, sounding tired. "Mom, Dad, Ethan, I have something to say. My job is incredibly busy with year-end deadlines. I'll probably have to travel to New York City for a week to close a major deal. I'm not sure what to do about Ava." My mother-in-law immediately jumped in. "Oh, go ahead and focus on your work, honey. Leave the grandchild here. Your father and I will watch her. Ethan is here too. Don't worry." This was exactly what I was waiting for. I pretended to be worried. But that's too much trouble for you, Mom and Dad. You're getting older and Ethan has to work plus take care of Skylar. I deliberately glanced at Skylar. Ethan quickly spoke up, trying to prove himself. Don't worry, Olivia. You go on your business trip. Ava is my child. It's natural for me to care for her. With Mom and Dad here to help, you don't need to stress. Skylar, though unhappy, dared not object. Objecting now would brand her as a selfish, narrow-minded stepmother. She reluctantly smiled. Yes, you go, Olivia. We'll take care of Ava here at home. I looked at them all, suppressing a cold chuckle. I knew exactly what they were thinking. They saw this as a chance for Ethan to demonstrate his paternal love, a chance for them to bond with Ava. They thought this was the stepping stone for Ava to accept Skylar and the incoming baby. They had happily walked into the trap I set. Thank you, Mom, Dad, and Ethan, I said, my voice full of gratitude. I'll only be gone for a week. I'll be back as soon as the deal is done. The decision was finalized to everyone's satisfaction, except mine. They didn't know that the week I was away would be the week a storm broke over this house. I wasn't going to New York City. I rented a furnished apartment nearby, both to work and rest, but most importantly, to watch a good play, a drama called Domestic Hell. On the very first day of my supposed business trip, Skylar's life was instantly flipped upside down. She, who had never cared for a baby and was now suffering from morning sickness, had to face an infant just over 4 months old. Ava seemed to sense her mother's absence. She became fussier than usual, especially at night. Her cries shredded the house's peace and tormented everyone, especially Skylar. Ethan, can you please calm the baby down? I can't get any sleep, Skylar complained to Ethan repeatedly. Ethan, exhausted after a full day of work and now having to stay up at night to soothe the baby, grew irritable. I'm trying. You think comforting a baby is easy? But Ava's protector was my mother-in-law. Any hint of the baby crying or Skylar complaining brought her running. What is it? Why is my grandchild crying like this? She would snatch Ava up, glare at Skylar, and say, she must be hungry. Or maybe her diaper is wet. This girl, she can't even watch the child while her son is working, and she's pregnant too? Truly useless. Skylar was furious and on the verge of tears. Mom, why are you talking to me like that? I'm tired too. Then you deal with it. I was working dawn till dusk when I was pregnant with Ethan. I still cooked, cared for the animals. Nobody waited on me like you expect. If you can't handle this little bit, what will you do after the baby is born? My mother-in-law showed no mercy. These confrontations happened daily. Skylar, once a pampered mistress, now lived under the constant criticism of my mother-in-law, the frustration of her lover, and the ceaseless cries of her lover's child. Her meals were no longer enjoyable, her sleep no longer peaceful. The house she thought would be her paradise had become a living hell. She started taking her anger out on Ethan. It's all your fault. Why did you drag out things with her and her baby? Now look, I have to endure all this. I told you I have a responsibility to my child, Ethan retorted defensively. If you accepted me, you have to accept my child too. But I didn't think I had to accept your parents and live like this. I'm exhausted. Take me out of here. Let's find our own place. Our own place? Easy for you to say. Where's the money for that? We haven't even finalized the settlement on this house with Olivia yet. Don't be so demanding. The fighting was continuous. They argued from the living room to the bedroom. Dishes were occasionally heard shattering. My in-laws just shook their heads, though they looked secretly delighted. They let the two fight it out, believing they should resolve their own conflicts. In my furnished apartment, I occasionally received calls from my mother-in-law. She recounted all the household drama, her voice mixing complaint with a hint of satisfaction. I just listened and smiled. Things were going even better than I had hoped. It had only been a few days, and they were already like oil and water. I wondered what would be left of that house by the 7th day, when I returned. Likely just the ashes of a doomed relationship. Exactly 7 days later, on a Sunday afternoon, I decided it was time to return. The past week had allowed me to work and rest fully. More importantly, I had quietly contacted Mr. Harrison, the esteemed executive vice president. A few months prior, after his scandal with Skylar broke, I had cleverly obtained his private phone number through a trusted colleague. I sent him only one text message. "Hello, Mr. Harrison. This is Olivia, Ethan Miller's wife. I believe we share a common enemy named Skylar. I have some information you might find interesting. If you'd like to seek justice for yourself, please meet me." Mr. Harrison, a shrewd and bitter man humiliated by a cunning young woman, readily agreed. We had a long discussion. I told him everything about how Skylar had ruined my family and was now using a pregnancy to secure my ex-husband. The indignation of a deceived man rose within him, and he was eager to cooperate. I arranged for him to pick me up at a coffee shop near my home, claiming I had just arrived from the airport. I wanted the scene to look completely natural. When Mr. Harrison's luxury sedan pulled up to the house, I stepped out, pulling a small suitcase. Mr. Harrison gallantly opened the door for me and carried my suitcase like a courteous colleague. I rang the doorbell. My mother-in-law opened the door. Seeing me, she was overjoyed. "You're back, dear. Oh, we've been waiting for you. Come in, come in." She then noticed Mr. Harrison, a middle-aged man impeccably dressed. She looked a little surprised. "Oh, hello, sir." I quickly introduced them. "This is Mr. Harrison, the executive vice president at my company, Mom. He gave me a ride home from the airport, as it was on his way. Mr. Harrison, this is Ethan's mother." Mr. Harrison smiled professionally, nodding to my mother-in-law. "Hello, ma'am. Just dropping Olivia off. I'll be going now." "Oh, a valued guest. Please come in for a glass of water before you leave," my mother-in-law insisted out of politeness. And so, the uninvited guest I had deliberately arranged confidently walked into the house. The living room held everyone. My father-in-law was reading the newspaper. Ethan was holding Ava, his face looking haggard after a week of stress. And Skylar. She sat on the sofa, equally exhausted, her hands resting on her stomach. When Skylar looked up and saw the man who had entered with me, her complexion instantly changed. It turned paper white. Her eyes widened in horror and disbelief. She stammered, unable to speak. "AP." Ethan, busy soothing the baby, heard Skylar's voice and looked up. He recognized his boss and immediately stood up to greet him, though he was clearly confused. "Sir, why are you here?" Mr. Harrison didn't look at Ethan. His eyes were fixed on Skylar, a gaze that was both contemptuous and mocking. He smirked. "Ah, so you're all here. What a coincidence, Ethan, you're something else. Turns out while you were having an affair with your wife's employee, you were also taking care of your boss's mistress." The room fell instantly silent. The main act had begun. Mr. Harrison's statement landed like a bombshell in the quiet living room. My in-laws looked bewildered, trying to understand. Ethan froze, his face drained of color. He looked from Skylar to his boss, his eyes filled with confusion. "Sir, what do you mean by that? I don't understand." Mr. Harrison laughed heartily, a laugh filled with the satisfaction of a man holding all the cards. He casually sat on the sofa, crossed his legs, and stared directly at the trembling Skylar. "Don't understand? Let me explain it to you then. This beautiful Skylar here, before she became your sweetheart, was the woman I was keeping for 3 years. That condo she lives in, the car she drives, those designer items she wears all on my dime. Did you know that?" Ethan was speechless. He stared at Skylar as if she were an alien. "Skylar, is what he's saying true?" Skylar's face was ashen. She stammered, No, it's not true, Ethan. Don't listen to him. He's lying about me." "Lying?" Mr. Harrison laughed again. "Why would I lie about you? Did you forget, my dear? Forget all the times you told me you loved me the most? Forget the times you whined for me to buy you a new handbag or clothes? Or maybe you forgot the times I had to take you to the clinic to handle the consequences. Let me see. I think it was 3 times, wasn't it?" Every word Mr. Harrison spoke was a knife plunging into Ethan's heart. He staggered, nearly dropping Ava. My mother-in-law quickly rushed over to take her granddaughter. She was starting to understand, her eyes now filled with utter rage toward Skylar. "Oh my God, so you're that kind of woman?" Mr. Harrison wasn't finished. He seemed to relish the humiliation of the woman who betrayed him. The height of her deceit was that, while she was still taking my money, she was secretly seeing you, Ethan. She told me you were just a pesky colleague harassing her. She cried and complained that your wife Olivia was jealous and treated her badly, so she had to pretend to be friendly with you to be left alone. I believed her, until my wife found out and created a scene. Turns out I was wearing a massive set of horns put there by a sly fox all this time. You tell me, isn't that ridiculous? All eyes were on Skylar. She had no color left in her face, her whole body shaking violently. She looked at Ethan, tears streaming down. Ethan, I'm sorry, I had my own troubles. He was pressuring me. I truly love you. But Ethan couldn't hear a word anymore. His face shifted from pale to crimson with anger and humiliation. To be so bitterly deceived, the self-respect of a man had been mercilessly trampled. He stared intensely at Skylar's abdomen, his eyes full of doubt and disgust. "The baby," he whispered. "Is that baby you're carrying really mine?" That was the question I had waited for. The decisive blow had been struck. Skylar went ballistic upon hearing that. She shrieked, "Of course it's yours. How can you doubt me? Don't you trust me?" But once doubt takes root, nothing can suppress it. Ethan looked at her with alien coldness. "I don't trust you. From now on, I won't believe a single word you say. That baby, when it's born, we'll do a DNA test. If it's mine, I'll take responsibility. If it's not, you know the consequences." He turned away, refusing to look at Skylar for another second. My play had reached a successful conclusion. I stood quietly, watching their collapse, without a ripple of emotion. This was the price they had to pay. After that day, the already tense house grew even more stifling. My in-laws no longer treated Skylar with any courtesy. They treated her like air, even making bitter, veiled comments. Ethan completely avoided her. He moved to the living room couch, refusing to speak to Skylar. His eyes held only disgust and suspicion. Skylar lived like a ghost, weeping and begging, but it was all useless. Ethan began trying to reconcile with me. He showed remorse, attentive care for Ava and me. He spoke sweet words, recalling old memories, hoping to mend the broken marriage. Naturally, I responded with indifference. The colder I was, the more desperate he became. One weekend, Ethan suggested taking Ava and me shopping. "It's been a long time since we went out as a family. You and Ava need some winter clothes. Please, Olivia?" I didn't want to go, but then I thought it would be a good opportunity to bring things to a head. I agreed. We went to a large, bustling shopping mall. Ethan acted the part of the exemplary husband and father. He pushed Ava's stroller, carried my bags, and patiently waited for me to choose clothes. He bought me an expensive dress and Ava many toys. Watching us, no one would think we were a divorced couple. But I knew we couldn't escape Skylar's desperate pursuit. In her frenzy of despair and jealousy, she had secretly followed us. As we happily browsed the children's toy section, she suddenly appeared, looking worn and disheveled. "Ethan, how dare you? You leave me pregnant with your child at home to enjoy yourselves with her and her baby here?" Skylar shrieked, drawing the attention of everyone around. Ethan's face darkened. "What are you doing here? Go home right now." "I won't go home. Why should I? I'm your future wife. You have a responsibility to me." Skylar rushed forward, trying to grab Ethan's arm. I quickly pulled Ava aside to keep her safe from the commotion. People started gathering, whispering, and pointing. Some even took out their phones to record. "Are you crazy? Who is your future husband?" Ethan violently shoved Skylar's arm away. "I told you, everything will be clear after the baby is born, and we do the DNA test." Ethan's words were like adding fuel to the fire. "DNA test? You dare mention that. You don't trust me. You don't trust your own blood?" Skylar wept and pounded on Ethan's chest. In the ensuing struggle, whether accidentally or intentionally, Skylar tripped over a toy on the floor. She stumbled and fell hard onto the ground. A piercing scream echoed. Everyone froze. I looked down and saw a stream of bright red blood beginning to spread on the white tile floor between her legs. Skylar clutched her abdomen, her face contorted in agony. "The baby, my baby. Help my baby." This time, it was no performance. Tragedy had truly struck. Ethan stood paralyzed, his face ghostly white. Around us, there were screams and calls for an ambulance. Amidst the chaos, I simply held my daughter tightly, my eyes emotionless. Everything had to come to an end eventually. Skylar was rushed to the emergency room, but it was too late. The baby could not be saved. Ironically, a subsequent blood test indicated it was likely a boy, and by blood type, highly probable that it was Ethan's child. But that fact was irrelevant now. Ethan sat numbly on the hospital bench, his mind blank. He had just suffered an enormous shock. The noise at the mall, Skylar's fall, the image of blood on the floor, and now this loss. Everything had hit him so suddenly. He had lost a child he hadn't even confirmed was his. Guilt, regret, exhaustion, and despair overwhelmed him. When Skylar woke up, the first person she wanted to see was Ethan. She lay weakly and pathetically in the hospital bed. She cried, clutching Ethan's hand. "Ethan, our baby is gone. I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have followed you. Please, don't leave me. You're all I have left now." But Ethan was cold now. He looked at Skylar, devoid of any pity. The recent shock seemed to have sobered him up. He realized that his relationship with this woman only brought him trouble, deceit, and tragedy. He gently but firmly pulled his hand away from hers. "We're done, Skylar." His voice was flat, emotionless. Skylar was stunned. What did you say? Done? Our baby just died. How can you be so cruel?" "Because it just died. That's why I'm saying this," Ethan replied. "The only connection that could bind us is gone. I'm exhausted. I don't want to continue a life full of fighting, jealousy, lies, and dramatics like this. Take care of yourself. I'll cover all the hospital bills." "No, I won't agree," Skylar screamed, trying to sit up. "You can't treat me like this. I sacrificed everything for you. I was pregnant with your child. Now you're just going to walk away?" "Yes, I'm a jerk," Ethan admitted impassively. "But you're no better than me. Our coming together was a mistake. Now is the time to fix that mistake. Don't look for me again." With that, he turned and walked away, never looking back, leaving Skylar crying hysterically in despair. She had lost everything: her child, her financial backing, and the man she had used every trick to steal. Her life gamble had come up empty. After definitively ending things with Skylar, Ethan focused all his energy on winning me back. He came home early every day, brought flowers, gifts, and cooked my favorite dishes. He took over all of Ava's care, from feeding to rocking her to sleep. He did everything he could to prove his repentance. My in-laws, having seen Skylar's true colors and experienced the recent tragedy, were fully on my side. My mother-in-law held my hand, tears welling up. "Olivia, it's our family's misfortune. Ethan was foolish. Can you forgive him this once? Our grandchild, Ava, needs a complete family. She needs both her father and mother. Please, reconsider, dear." Ethan even knelt before me, an act I never imagined seeing. "Olivia, I know I caused you so much pain. I don't dare ask for immediate forgiveness, but please give me a chance to make amends, to make it up to you and Ava. Let's remarry, Olivia. For Ava, for her future, can we start over?" He looked at me with sincerity and desperation. Everything seemed to be falling back into its intended place. The betrayer had paid the price. The wayward husband had found his way back. A happy ending, just like in a fairy tale. But I was no longer the naive princess I once was. I silently looked at him, at his parents, and then smiled faintly. A gentle, serene smile. "It's too late, Ethan." My words stunned all three of them. Ethan looked up, disbelief etched on his face. "Olivia, what did you say?" I said, "It's all too late." I repeated, my voice clear and calm. "A ship that has left the harbor cannot turn back. A broken mirror cannot be mended. Some mistakes cannot be erased with just an apology." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the small front yard. During all this time, I hadn't just been passively waiting. I had applied for a transfer and was approved. I turned back, my eyes resolute. Next week, I will receive the confirmation of my appointment as the new Director of International Operations for the European branch of my company. I will be on long-term assignment there, maybe 3 years, 5 years, or perhaps even longer. Ethan shot to his feet, his face pale. "Europe? That's so sudden. Why didn't you tell me?" "Why would I need to tell you?" I smiled faintly. We are divorced. I have my life, and you have yours. Thank you for showing me the true face of love and marriage. Thanks to you, I realize that for a woman, career and self-sufficiency are the most important things. My statement was the final cold shower, extinguishing all of Ethan's remaining hope. He stood there, stunned, realizing he had lost me forever. A week later, I finalized all the paperwork. I sold the house, the place filled with both joy and sorrow, to completely sever ties with the past. My in-laws, though sad and reluctant to see their grandchild go, understood they couldn't hold me back. They only advised me to stay healthy and call often, so Ava could speak with them. I also arranged for my mother to accompany me. After so many years of hardship raising children, it was time for her to rest and enjoy life. On the day we left for the airport, Ethan came to see us off. He looked gaunt, aged 10 years. He didn't say much, just silently watched me and his daughter, his eyes full of regret and pain. He handed Ava a huge stuffed bear. "I'm sorry, Ava. I wasn't a good father. When you grow up, please don't resent me." I said nothing, only nodded in farewell. As we finished checking in and prepared to enter the security area, an unpleasant scene unfolded near the airport entrance. Skylar, somehow having found out about my departure, had tracked Ethan down to block his path. She was weeping, clinging to him, screaming insults. Ethan tried to push her away. The two started their familiar public brawl and argument, drawing curious, pointing eyes. I turned away, unwilling to watch any further. My mother sighed. Such a mess. I smiled, holding my daughter. Ava was sleeping soundly, her face angelic and peaceful. She would grow up in a new environment, a new life, free from the shadow of adult sorrows. I walked calmly through security, leaving all the past behind, the cheating husband, the pathetic mistress, and the painful months. The intercom announced the final call for the flight to Paris. I looked out at the vast blue sky through the window. A bright future awaited my daughter and me ahead. My revenge was complete in the sweetest and most profound way. I hadn't destroyed them through hatred. I had liberated myself and stepped onto a new page of my life. That, truly, was the noblest and most glorious revenge.